In the soft glow of dawn filtering through the curtains of her modest home on the outskirts of Macon, Georgia, Judge Renee Whitfield stirred from a restful sleep, her mind already attuned to the rhythm of the day ahead. At 48 years old, with a career built on precision and poise, she had long mastered the art of starting early. Her black Tesla Model Y waited in the driveway, a symbol of her hard-earned success, gleaming under the first rays of sunlight. Renee slipped into her usual attire, a modest blouse and slacks that spoke of professionalism without ostentation, and gathered her briefcase, which held her judicial robe and the day's docket. Custody hearings, a sentencing review, and a preliminary burglary case. Nothing out of the ordinary, or so she thought, as she navigated the quiet streets toward the Fulton County Courthouse. The world outside her window seemed peaceful. Birds chirped in the trees lining the roads, and the air carried the faint scent of blooming jasmine from nearby gardens. Renee glanced at her courthouse badge on the passenger seat, a small but significant emblem of her authority, appointed in 2016 after years of climbing the legal ladder. She pulled into the freshly paved parking lot, aiming for her reserved spot marked with her name. The lot was sparsely populated at this hour, with only a few early arrivals milling about. Clerks, security guards, and the occasional attorney reviewing notes. But as she eased into the space, a sudden flash of blue and red lights erupted in her side mirror, shattering the tranquility. No siren accompanied the display, just the erratic swerve of a police cruiser boxing her in, its bumper inches from her rear. Renee's heart quickened, not from fear exactly, but from a deep-seated awareness honed by experience. She was a black woman in a high-end vehicle, and in moments like these, every action carried weight. Instinctively, she placed both hands visibly on the steering wheel, her eyes locking onto the officer through the windshield. The cruiser's door flung open, and out stepped Officer Colin McRae, a white man in his mid-30s, his rigid posture and mirrored sunglasses concealing any hint of expression. His hand hovered near his sidearm as he barked, "Turn off the vehicle and step out." Renee's mind raced, calculating risks. Quick movements could be misinterpreted, especially given her complexion. Instead, she cracked the window halfway and spoke calmly, "Is there a reason for this?" McRae marched forward, undeterred. "This vehicle matches the description of a reported stolen car from Warner Robins." His voice was sharp, authoritative, leaving no room for dialogue. Renee tried to steady her pulse. "That's incorrect. This car is registered to me. I'm literally on my way to court." But he ignored her, his focus unwavering, as if he had already decided her story. Around them, the courthouse lot began to stir. A clerk named Janelle, whom Renee recognized from years of polite nods in the halls, slowed her steps, fumbling for her phone. Another employee, a younger Latino man from the public defender's office, paused near the entrance, his own device in hand. Renee unbuckled slowly, opening the door as McRae repeated his command. Out of the car, he reached for his cuffs, his intent clear. As she stepped out, Renee spoke again, her voice firm yet composed. "My identification is in my briefcase. I'm a sitting judge in this district." McRae didn't respond. Instead, he moved to secure her wrists, one cuff clicking open. But Renee turned slightly, lifting her briefcase with deliberate slowness. Inside, clipped to the front pocket of her black robe, was her official judicial ID. She held it up, arm fully extended. "Judge Renee Elaine Whitfield, appointed 2016. You're making a serious mistake." For the first time, McRae froze. He blinked, his mouth parting slightly as he stared at the ID. The moment stretched, heavy with realization. Janelle's phone captured it all, as did the public defender's and the courthouse security camera overhead. Murmurs rippled through the growing crowd, employees, attorneys, even early jurors pausing to watch. The heat of the morning sun began to intensify, making the air thick and oppressive. McRae mumbled, "Ma'am, I thought," but the words fell flat. The story was already unfolding, not in official reports, but in the digital realm of recordings. From the courthouse steps, Assistant DA Darnell Vick strode down, his face etched with concern. "What's going on? This is Judge Whitfield. Why is she being detained?" McRae stiffened. "We received a match on a stolen vehicle, a black Tesla, late model. I responded accordingly." Vic shot back, "She parks here every day. That's her name on the space. Did you even check the plate?" Renee interjected, her tone still measured. "You acted on assumption. There was no request for my ID before trying to cuff me. You didn't even ask my name." McRae glanced around, the phones still raised, the crowd swelling. A security guard at the top of the steps stared in disbelief. Renee turned to Vic. "Can you please escort me inside? I have hearings in 20 minutes." As they moved toward the door, she faced McRae one last time. "I suggest you get the body cam footage from your cruiser before it disappears." The silence that followed was profound, broken only by the growing whispers. She handled that like a queen. Man tried to arrest a whole judge. Inside the courthouse, Renee paused near security to collect herself. Her hands were steady, but her mind replayed every second. The flash of lights, the barked commands, the cuff clicking open. Kenny, the older guard, leaned in. "You good, Judge? I'm all right, thank you." He whispered, "That video's already spreading. People are heated." She nodded, proceeding to her chambers. Sinking into her chair, Renee allowed herself a deep breath. She wasn't just a judge anymore. This incident had thrust her into a spotlight she hadn't sought. Pulling out her phone, she called her wife, Delia. "There was an incident in the lot. I'm okay, but it's spreading." Delia, sensing the gravity, replied, "Please tell me someone filmed it. 3 that I know of, maybe more." They exchanged assurances, and Renee donned her robe, resolving to focus on the day ahead. But as she entered the courtroom, the buzz was palpable. Attorneys whispered, clerks exchanged glances. Renee presided over the first hearing, a custody case, with her usual grace, but her scans of the room were more deliberate, taking inventory of faces and reactions. By mid-morning, as the session broke, her phone was overloaded. Texts from colleagues, emails from media, calls from her alma mater. Janelle knocked, holding a folder. A reporter's downstairs asking for a statement. "No comment until I speak to legal." Janelle lingered. "I've worked here 10 years. Never seen anything like that." Renee sighed. "It shouldn't take this for people to pay attention." Outside, news vans arrived, and the video clips began circulating widely. 3 angles showing a black woman calmly asserting her identity, while a white officer ignored her, reaching for cuffs. Meanwhile, at the Macon Police Department, McRae sat in a windowless office with Captain Troy Dellinger and legal liaison Phyllis Granger. The room reeked of stale coffee. "Tell us what happened," Granger said firmly. McRae rubbed his forehead. "Dispatch alert for a black Tesla, no plates visible on front. I acted immediately." Dellinger pressed, "You didn't check the back plate." "I followed protocol." Granger corrected, "No, you escalated on description alone." Outside the department, a small group formed. holding signs like she had to flash an ID to be seen. Back at the courthouse, Renee returned to chambers, reading comments on the video. One from Latris in Birmingham stood out. "If a judge can be treated like this, what chance does my baby have?" It lingered in her mind as she resumed hearings, her voice carrying more steel. The incident's ripples spread rapidly. By late morning, headlines emerged. Georgia judge mistaken for car thief by local officer. The video crossed platforms, igniting conversations in break rooms and online. Renee met with attorney Geraldine Frey in a quiet corner of the courthouse cafe. "You're a symbol now," Frey said. "What you say next matters." Renee murmured, "I stayed calm because that man didn't see me, not even a little." As the sun climbed higher, McRae's internal review intensified. Complaints from his file surfaced, 15 in 7 years, many for improper stops and unprofessional behavior. Internal Affairs reopened old cases. Protesters gathered outside the department, silent but present, holding signs with complaint numbers. Rodney Gilchrist, a past complainant, spoke to a reporter. "He pulled me over in front of my house. Said you people say that all the time." Renee, pausing between hearings, met with fellow judges Ariel Boone and Eloise Marsh in a side room. "We've all had our McRae moments," Ariel said, "just not as public." They shared stories of being mistaken for caterers or ignored at events. Renee nodded. "I'm ready to speak, not for cameras, but for people who have never had the words." By afternoon, the pressure mounted. City Council called an emergency hearing, streamed live. Chief Lionel Garrick faced questions. Was Judge Whitfield targeted because of a race? "I can't speak to intent, but it's unacceptable." Murmurs filled the room as residents demanded accountability. Outside, high school students organized a walkout, wearing shirts reading "Respect isn't earned by rank." In the courthouse, Renee reviewed safety protocols with Judge Vincent Yarrow and Administrator Gillian Ispy. "We don't need policies," she said. "We need mirrors to see our own biases." The mayor's office issued a memo launching an independent commission. Action followed swiftly. A press conference announced McRae's termination. "He violated protocols," Chief Garrick stated. "His actions don't reflect our standards." Renee watched from chambers, absorbing the news. Accountability felt heavy. As the day wore on, she attended a town hall at Union Baptist Church, speaking impromptu. "Demand a system that protects people because they're people." Applause followed, and notes of encouragement slipped into her hands. But the day wasn't over. Renee requested a meeting with McRae in a neutral municipal room. They sat in silence before she spoke. "I need to understand how you got there." He admitted, "I saw someone who didn't belong and didn't ask." She replied, "I don't hate you, but I don't excuse you. Use your choices wisely." As evening approached, Renee addressed the Georgia Association of Black Lawyers. Justice is about recognition, seeing someone fully before reacting. The room applauded. Walking to her Tesla with Delia, she reflected, "We finally had a moment where someone had to see what they missed." The city hummed with change, flawed but shifting, as Renee drove home, the day's events encapsulated in one relentless arc of revelation and reform. The courthouse corridors, usually a symphony of hurried footsteps and muffled conversations, felt charged with an undercurrent of tension as Judge Renee Whitfield navigated them post-incident. The morning's confrontation lingered like a shadow, casting long doubts over the familiar routines. Renee, her robe draped over her arm like a shield, moved with purpose toward her next hearing, but her thoughts swirled around the parking lot scene. The blue lights, the officer's unyielding gaze, the click of cuffs that never fully closed. She had always prided herself on composure, a trait forged in the fires of law school debates and courtroom battles, but today it felt like armor rather than instinct. In the break room adjacent to the judge's chambers, whispers abounded. Colleagues, some of whom she had shared lunches with for years, approached tentatively. "Renee, I saw the video," one said, a white male judge in his 60s, his voice laced with awkward sympathy. "Unbelievable." She nodded, offering a small smile. "Believable, unfortunately." The exchange was brief, but it underscored the divide. For many, this was shocking, but for her, it was a variation on a theme she had lived subtly throughout her career. As she settled into the bench for the sentencing review, the courtroom air hummed with subdued energy. The defendant, a young man accused of petty theft, stood before her, his attorney arguing for leniency. Renee's rulings were as fair as ever, but her questions probed deeper, seeking context beyond the charges. "What circumstances led to this?" she asked, her eyes meeting the defendant's. He stammered a response about financial hardship, and she nodded, adjusting the sentence to community service. The attorneys noticed the shift, a subtle emphasis on equity that hadn't been as pronounced before. Outside, the parking lot had transformed into a makeshift media hub. News vans lined the curb, reporters clutching microphones and notepads, eager for sound bites. Janelle, the clerk, fielded calls in the lobby, her phone ringing incessantly. No comment from Judge Whitfield. She repeated, her loyalty unwavering, but the videos, Janelle's, the public defenders and securities, had already escaped into the digital ether, amassing views by the thousands. Comments poured in. "This is why we need body cams everywhere. She stayed so calm, I'd have lost it." At the police department, the atmosphere was one of controlled chaos. Officer McRae, sequestered in the administrative wing, faced a barrage of questions from superiors. Captain Dellinger paced the room, his face stern. "You didn't verify the plate, Colin. You jumped straight to detention." McRae defended. "The description matched perfectly. I was protecting the public." Granger, the liaison, interjected. "Protecting from what?" "A woman in professional attire in a reserved spot." The review dug into his file, unearthing patterns. Complaints of racial bias, ignored stops. "This isn't isolated," Granger noted. Protesters began assembling, their numbers swelling as word spread via social media. Signs bobbed in the crowd, "Bias behind the badge," and "See us first." Rodney Gilchrist arrived, sharing his story with a growing circle. "3 years ago, same officer, pulled me over for nothing. No one listened then." Reporters swarmed, capturing testimonials that painted a broader picture of systemic issues. Renee, during a brief recess, retreated to her chambers, where she fielded a call from Delia. "The videos everywhere," Delia said, her voice a mix of concern and pride. "You're handling this with grace." Renee exhaled. "Grace is all I have right now." She scrolled through messages, support from law school friends, outrage from civil rights groups. One email from James Pendry, a state appeals judge, offered assistance, a rare olive branch from a past critic. The afternoon hearings proceeded, but the courthouse buzz intensified. Attorneys in the gallery whispered about the implications, some filing motions citing potential bias in ongoing cases. Renee maintained order, her gavel strikes resolute. Yet, internally, she grappled with the symbolism thrust upon her. "I'm not a victim," she thought, echoing her earlier words to Frey. But the incident had peeled back layers, exposing vulnerabilities even in positions of power. City officials convened hastily in a conference room downtown. Councilwoman Maria Campos led the charge. This isn't just one officer, it's a failure of oversight. Discussions turned to reforms, retraining, independent reviews. The mayor's memo was drafted on the spot, promising a commission. "We act today," the mayor declared, aware of the mounting public pressure. McRae, now on leave, watched from home as his name trended. His phone buzzed with notifications. Old colleagues distancing themselves, family worried. He replayed the video, wincing at his frozen expression when the ID was revealed. "I didn't mean harm," he muttered, but the intent versus impact debate raged online. Renee met with Boone and Marsh in a discreet alcove, their conversation delving into shared experiences. At a conference once, a deputy asked if I was lost. Marsh recalled. They laughed bitterly, bonding over the unspoken rules of navigation in predominantly white spaces. "Speak for the silent ones," Boone urged. Renee nodded, resolve hardening. As the sun dipped lower, the town hall at the church filled quickly. Renee sat among the crowd, listening to stories mirroring her own, stops without cause, assumptions based on appearance. When called to speak, she rose. "This isn't about me, it's about demanding humanity for all." The applause was thunderous, affirming her words. The meeting with McRae followed, tense but revealing. "I saw a threat, not a person," he confessed. Renee responded, visibility shouldn't require a title. Their exchange bridged a chasm, if only momentarily. Evening brought the Lawyers Association event. Renee's address resonated. Justice demands we see beyond surfaces. As she left with Delia, the day's weight lifted slightly, the narrative of change gaining momentum in the compressed hours of revelation. As the afternoon shadows lengthened across the Macon skyline, Judge Renee Whitfield found herself at the epicenter of a whirlwind that had consumed the day. The courthouse, once a bastion of routine, now pulsed with the aftershocks of the morning's events. Reporters lingered in the halls, hoping for a glimpse, while staff exchanged stories of the video's rapid spread. Renee, emerging from her final hearing, felt the cumulative toll, the emotional calculations, the public scrutiny, but her step remained steady. In chambers, she reviewed the mayor's memo, its promises of reform, a small victory amid the chaos. Calls continued, the Judicial Conduct Board praising her poise, community leaders seeking guidance. Delia texted, "Come home soon, you've done enough." But Renee knew the day demanded closure. The press conference at the department unfolded live, Chief Garrick's announcement of McRae's termination drawing gasps from assembled media. "Accountability starts here," he said. Questions flew. Has he apologized? Declined. Renee watched on her phone, a mix of relief and solemnity washing over her. Protests peaked outside, chants for systemic change echoing. Students from the walkout joined, their energy infectious. Council hearings wrapped with commitments to action, Campos declaring no more ignored warnings. Renee attended the town hall, her words igniting hope. Protect dignity for all. Notes and hugs followed, reinforcing her impact. The McRae meeting provided raw insight. "I've repeated this mistake," he admitted. Renee urged, "Choose better." It wasn't forgiveness, but understanding. At the lawyers' gathering, her speech culminated the day. Awareness leads to change. Applause rang as she exited with Delia, the Tesla humming homeward. The city, stirred by one day's events, edged toward transformation. Renee's story a catalyst for seeing truths long overlooked.
If you liked this story, please like, subscribe, and share it with others so they can learn something from it too.